Hello everyone and welcome to Reentry. In this video we will cover some of the new features that you will see in the 0.99 update. So first of all, 0.99 will be split into multiple updates to cover some of the main features and bug fixes that I wanted to do before the 1.0 milestone. And the reason I want to split this up is to avoid getting one update which will take months to develop and a lot of testing. So just to simplify everything, I've split it up into multiple releases, and in this video you will see what the first update on the 0.99 series will cover. So first of all, the 0.99 is mostly about mechanics, game mechanics and bug fixes. So you will see that we have addressed quite a lot of key issues that you've seen laying around in the older builds. But in addition, I also decided to improve some of the graphics and some of the internal game mechanics, and to make everything kind of feel more and more like a game. So first of all, right now I'm in an ascent in the Saturn V, and the Apollo spacecraft is on its way to orbit. And right now you saw that the engine had a cutoff. So if I now open up the mission pad, you will see that I've added a new map. Instead of having that static map where that didn't really have too much information on it, I've decided to change this with the Apollo Earth Orbit Chart, AEO. This is basically something that was used in the real program, and this map contains the latitude and longitude. Let's see, world map within the latitude and longitude of 0 in latitude to about 45 and negative 45 basically. So it doesn't kind of cover the poles, but this is the same as you used to have in the previous builds as well. And it obviously contains the entire world in longitude, so basically the full revolution of Earth. And you can see that first of all it's scrollable, so you can move around on the map. And I've added this little cursor that shows you what longitude and latitude you're hovering on the map with these lines. And then you can see that the CSM is rendered here. And the trajectory here are reference trajectories, so an azimuth of 72 and so on. And you can see that there's this kind of triangle markers initially here. This is showing kind of the powered ascent. And then I had a cutoff around here. This is when I basically started this video, and I'm on my first revolution around Earth. You can also see that I've added support for zooming, so you can kind of zoom in and out. And then all the radio stations, as you are used to in Mercury and Gemini potentially, you can see that I've rendered all of the radio station, and I'm drawing kind of this green circle around the radio stations that are in range of the spacecraft. And I'm going to continue tuning on this circle here and the coloring and the look and shape of it. But you can see that below them, the real signal strength were basically drawn around each radio station. So you can see that the scenery, the geography or territorium or something like that around the radio station kind of limits where the signal goes in some cases. And now if I would, for example, zoom out a little bit and I would start time scaling, you can see that the spacecraft is now going around the Earth, and it kind of follows the azimuth and inclination that I had when I entered the orbit. So for example, right now I'm over Australia, and I'm going to timescale a little bit more just to show you kind of the full revolution. You can see that the radio stations are highlighted. And with this mode, you can basically explore the Earth in much higher detail than you used to do before. And you can make sure that your trajectory kind of follows some of the references as well. And I'm about to hit the coast right now. So there we go. You can also see that I've changed some of the fonts being used on the mission pad itself. So I'm going to continue iterating more and more on the mission pad going forward, especially after the 1.0 milestone. Maybe even making the entire mission pad scalable so you can kind of pull the corners to rescale it to the size that you want. And I'm also looking into different ways of modernizing the way that you're executing checklists in Apollo. So that's the first feature. I'm now going to load into another state, which takes the Apollo spacecraft into orbit around the moon. So the second part of this update is about some similar improvements, but for lunar orbits. So first of all, right now, I'm in orbit around the moon, and we're currently seeing the Earth coming up on the horizon. And some of the bigger changes that I've done while in lunar orbit is to perform a similar update to the moon map as you saw with the Earth map. So basically, you can see that the similar feature set has been added to the moon map. You can see the cursor, the longitude and latitude that you're currently hovering with the mouse cursor, and you can pan around and you can zoom in and out on the map. You can also see a lot of details with this kind of relief map, which is also a map used in the real Apollo program. And these maps does contain a lot of information about every single crater that you can see. You can see the naming. I've also added some details about, you know, the landing point. So currently I'm waiting for a power descent initiation. And the selected landing point is here, which requires a burn at the green cursor here. And you can see that I'm rendering the perigee and the lunar module perigee and the command module perigee with these flags here. And there's are basically lines that goes across the entire latitude just to kind of show where that point is. And then obviously I have the same for apogee as well. It's using this coloring here as its reference. And then you can see that there's these icons, the CSM and the lunar module orbiting the moon. And I'm currently soon approaching this little ocean here, and we will follow a trajectory across some mountainous areas, and then we'll reach kind of more visible near side of the moon before we perform the landing itself. So as you can see, you can now study the moon to a much greater detail. And if you see that you're currently flying over a crater, for example, you can now see that this crater is named this or that, and then you can kind of start learning the geograph the layout of the moon. And then secondly, another really big update is that I've been working quite a lot on how the moon looks while you're in orbit. You can see that if I'm zooming now in, you can see some sand textures and some dust textures kind of mapped with a new color map as well, so you can see some more highlights. I've also doubled the resolution of the texture set used to visualize the moon in terms of color map, and the height map has been increased from 8K to 27K, and then the color map has, as I mentioned, doubled. Has gone from 8K to 16K, and this will give you a moon that kind of looks much more realistic. So let me just time scale a little bit. You can see that the details on the moon, the craters, is much greater than it used to be. On the Steam post, I have some comparison photos that lets you kind of see the differences. In addition, the height map has been changed, and I've also updated the entire shader that's being used to render the moon to better support normal mapping and some basic shadowing of some of these craters. So if I now time scale all the way until I'm getting to the edge of the moon, you can see that compared to previously, there's a lot more detail and shadowing going on the edges of these craters the closer we get to the dark side of the moon. In addition, I've been working on some big updates on the Lunar module manual. Just as we saw with the Mercury, the Gemini, and the command module in the previous updates, I've done a big update on the manuals for the Lunar module as well. And you can also see that, let me just change the perspective here a little bit. See on the Steam post and on the screen here, all of the other updates that I've been doing in as part of this patch. So first of all, as we already covered, we've done the doubled and improved the moon texture set and the height maps, new shader on running the moon, the lunar map and the Earth map has been improved. Same with quite a lot of the functionalities of the mission pad itself. I've done quite a lot of updates on the Lunar Descent Guidance and the Lunar Ascent Guidance systems, and I also changed a little bit on the visuals of how the Ascent, the Lunar Module Ascent engine looks like when it's ignited. And then I've been performing a big update on the command module and the CMSN switch checks in the caution and warning system. So if I now quickly go into the command module here, and if I go to this section here, you can see that we have the warning lights here. We can go ahead and make sure that we're in normal. And I'm going to do a lamp test. So for example, I'm now in normal, and then the mode is in the CSM, which basically means that it monitors all of the systems in both the command and service module. And I can switch the lamp test on. You can see that the lights are illuminated, and set it to, you see the other side. And that applies to the master alarm as well. But if you now, for example, go and select CSM only, then you can see that the lamp test will only illuminate some of the systems, not everyone. Just this is because some of them are specific to the service module itself. Same if you go to boost and I do the lamp test, you can see that the master alarm on the commander side is extinguished, even though it should be on. And this is because the boost mode disables this light because it doesn't want you to confuse it with the abort light. In addition, we've been looking quite a lot of at issues around VR. So I've added support for the debrief menus, just so you can go into kind of pancake mode, look at your graphs, get familiar with the mission data after failing or completing a mission. And I've been updating some missions and dictionary definitions, fixed quite a lot of typos and issues. And I also made a big update to how you stage from the descent engine and when you're undocking from the CSM after a lunar ascent. So previously, when you undocked the ascent stage of the lunar module for the final time after a lunar ascent, you would notice that the entire ascent stage would kind of flicker and teleport and jump around, kind of dancing around the CSM. That issue has been fixed, so now it should undock smoothly and kind of slowly drift away once you press the final undock buttons in the CSM. I also added some initial save state support for Lunar Ascent. So after a Lunar Ascent and you dock with the command module, and you would hit save state. Previously, it would kind of save that the Lunar module was docked with the CSM, but it would load the same state into a state where the Lunar module still had its legs on. So basically, the descent stage was still connected. So I've added support for that. I also refined the logic around the delete and the reset storage button, so that should now be working again. And I've also made a fix for the transparent avatar from the main menu. So basically, from the main menu, if you select profile and then you go and edit the way that your astronaut or mission controller should look like, you would basically see a blank avatar with exception of a rendered headset that's just basically floating around. So that issue has also been fixed. So yeah, that's it for the first 0.99 update. I will follow up with some more patches as more and more bug fixes are reported on this. And in addition, I do have some plans for a couple of other updates within the 0.99 update cycle. So stay tuned and thank you for watching.